All right, so let's talk about, first of all, upper beginner. So you can see here roughly half of the students solving all the questions, one of them getting 3 questions right, one of them getting 2 questions right, and one of them getting, well, more or less 5, 4, 3, and 2. Yeah, I think that's it. 5, 4, 3, and 2. All right, I think you got a special guest today. Yeah? Mr. Sorbi, our Italian friend, has been playing, which is good because it's a good reference to compare your style against him. Yeah. I'm sometimes not a big fan of his coding style, but I would like to share my thoughts later on. So for now, let's present the results. First, individual challenge of the bootcamp. So the format will be slightly different. We'll reveal the results from bottom to the top. So first of all, we got Yiyun, 36 points. So 2 questions for, sorry, 2 questions for her today. Oh, sorry again. Here we go. So 36 points for Yiyun. Top 8 goes to Florin with 56 points. Top 7, Chuck, 65 points. Top 6, Camila with 93 points. Top 5 for Andrea with 95. So the victory is going to be quite expensive. Yeah, 95 points, not even in the top 4. That goes to Anita with 96. So now who is on the podium? So it's Giacomo versus who else? Alex and who's the one? Kaini? Yes? Cool. So Giacomo versus Kaini and Alex. Top 3. Oh, look, it's Giacomo. Cool. He struggled a bit with the first question on the elegance thingy. Yeah? So now between Kaini and Alex, who is the first winner of the first individual challenge of the bootcamp? Oh, look at that. 97.6, and that means that the first winner is Alex, 98 points. Well done, guys. Did everybody fail on the elegance of the first question? No, not at all. I was thinking whether that may be an issue on the platform, right? But if everybody fails on the same question, sometimes, there may be a glitch. But the thing is, almost everybody. That's pretty interesting. Everybody apart from Kaini. How is that possible? Okay, cool. Anyway, we'll review that in a minute. That was intermediate. And what about the?
I think I know why.
Say it again.
I think I know why the first question failed.
Yeah. Okay. Semicolon. Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah. Cool. Wait a minute. Did we only get one person getting points on the intermediate? That's a bit weird. Let me refresh. Oh, all right. So there is one person obviously solving all the answers. I'm 99% sure this is Giacomo, right? However, someone got one question right, which is cool. Yeah. Remember, to get the blue tick regarding React, you just need to get 40 plus points on intermediate. So hopefully this is not going to be that difficult. So let's have a look to the results. I mean, I expect nobody getting points, so let's get that very, very quick. And now, so one of you apart from Giacomo got some points. So who is that person? Oh, Anita, well done. 14 points for you. Question number 2. And then 93 points for Mr. Sorbi. Yeah? Cool, but that's good. I really like to, in the past, these challenges used to be private. But at some point, I hope you appreciate the value of having people like Giacomo playing. Because then you can, if you don't know how to solve a problem, you can check his code. And even if you, for instance, if Anita knows how to solve it, she can compare what she's done against Giacomo. And that doesn't mean that Giacomo is the source of truth and whatever he does is perfect, not necessarily. Yeah? But I think it's very valuable to compare different coding styles. I think in this particular aspect, as I mentioned before, I differ with Giacomo's style in many different aspects, and I don't want to say that obviously my style is better or worse than him, it's just different. Yeah? So it's good to have different perspectives towards coding. All right, so let's focus for now on the beginner level, and then you will tell me if there is any question in particular that you want to review. The last question, fantastic. So let's do that. So Anita wanted to have a look to the last question. So yeah, let's review it. So let's start. So last question was question number 5, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That one, display a combo to select a piece of fruit. Yeah, that one. Cool, so what we got? We got a component called fruit picker. The fruit picker component apparently doesn't receive any props, any data. However, if you scroll down a bit, you will notice that on the second assertion, on the second use case scenario, it does receive a prop. Yeah, only one prop selected, and it receives a string, yeah, with the value of the selected fruit. You know, this is just a combo box, a drop down where you can select multiple answers. Yeah, you know, when you want to fly with Ryanair or with any other company, where are you from? And you have to select your country of origin, that or the country that issue your passport, or whatever. Yeah, just a drop down with multiple options, and you have to select one of these. Cool. Also, look, that fruit picker, that combo box has only 2 options. So please select your favorite fruit, the apple or the orange. And then, if we select a fruit, then we need to prove that, visually speaking, when we refresh the page, that fruit is the default one. All right, so first things first. In HTML, if you want to declare a combo box, we use the select tag. Yeah? So this is literally HTML code. There is nothing particular about React at all. And now, to display a list of possible options, unsurprisingly, we type option, like that. Yeah, as simple as that. And then inside here, we pass the visual text, the content that the user will read on the screen. So far, what are the alternatives? It's apple and orange. Yeah? So let's create an option called apple, and then let me copy that. You remember you can easily copy lines with VS Code and also in the Codery platform using option shift down on Mac and something shift down on Windows. Apple and orange, I believe. So if we run this code, that won't fully work. You can see it works on the first use case scenario. However, it doesn't work on the second one because here we are expected to select a fruit. You see, by default, we are selecting undefined. However, the test is expecting you to select the apple instead. So how do we select a particular fruit? By adding a value prop on the select tag. Value equals, can anybody tell me what else do I have to type here? Say it again? Curly braces, and then what? Props dot what, guys? Selected, that's correct, Anita. Props dot selected, yeah, will select whatever the prop is. In other words, if I could sorry about that. I could hard code that, so I could pass here apple, and that will select the apple by default. Or I could put orange, and that will select the orange. If I put banana, for instance, nothing will be selected, yeah, because banana is not an available option. So if we want to make this dynamic, as Anita suggested, props.selected. Can anybody tell me, apart from Kaini, how can we destructure? I don't want to type props at all, so how can we change that?
Instead of props.
Curly brackets, and then what? Selected, correct. So now the code gets even simpler, yeah? That's super cool. So let's see if that works. That should work in theory. There you go, confetti time. Any questions? Yeah, go for it.
If you show the test.
Yes.
So whenever there's a shallow and then the fruit picker, whatever tag, so is that the class name or the function name?
That's the way you test components in React. Out of coincidence, Rochelle, she will be talking about testing with React. So that's syntax about how to test a React component. So that shallow thingy is essentially compiling the component so we can get the content, the methods, and everything. Yeah? You can ignore the semantics for now. So that's, to me, the least important thing. The important thing is, at a human point of view, try to understand the logic. Yeah? So you compile a component, however that's happening under the hood, then you try to find an element which is the select, and then out of that element you try to find two options. On the first one, the text should be apple, and on the second one, the text should be the orange.
Because in the intermediate, we had lots of simulate. I didn't understand what is
Simulate, yeah, so simulate, as Rosal will explain, that helps to interact with the component. I simulate, I'm clicking on that button on the component. Why simulate? Because you are not clicking with your finger, yeah, you are not clicking. That happens, it's a simulation. Anything else? Is there any other question you want to review on the beginner level? No? Should we do then intermediate? Let me quickly go through your code. Oh, that UX is not great, yeah? But let me quickly check what you've done on question number 5. I believe everybody doing pretty much the same thing. Actually, let me zoom it out so we can hopefully read the screen. And let me refresh to scroll down. Here we go. So that's it. So let me just have a look to your code. So fruit picker. Yeah, so all good for Anita. Not doing the structuring though. Same for Andrea. Look, Andrea did something interesting here. He added a value attribute. Yeah? In HTML, that's completely correct. In HTML, and even in React, to be honest, you can add a value. So that means that if you select the apple, internally, the value that gets saved is that one instead of this one, just to keep the long story short. To me, even though that's fully correct, and he definitely proves how that works, feels a bit like doing over-engineering, because no one is asking him to do that, yeah? But once again, that's completely fine. What else? So, why, can anybody tell me why it didn't work for Jiyun? Here, that's wrong, yeah? That's wrong because of two reasons. First of all, instead of name, we should put here value. And also, I mean, look, C is receiving a list of props, that's fine, however, she's ignoring it. That was the main issue for Jiyun. Yep, all good for Alex. And why it didn't work for Florin? The same thing, yeah? So Florin, so that probably is okay in HTML, yeah, pass a selected attribute, but in React, you have to work slightly differently. You need to pass a value attribute here with the selected value. That's the confusion. All good for Kaini, and for Camila, and for Giacomo, of course, yeah? Making it with the value attribute. Once again, guys, even though that's fully correct, actually, look, Alex, I think, was the only one using this structuring. Personally, let me recommend you to use it all the time. Because towards an interview, towards a code review, that sounds very powerful. Yeah? If I look at this code, I mean, if I need to select 2 developers out of that list, obviously I will select 2 people managed to solve the code. Here, for instance, Anita and Alex. However, to me the message is, okay, Anita knows how to solve it, and Alex knows to solve it, and on top of that, he really knows how to perform the structuring, which is a very powerful and modern pattern in JavaScript. Anything else about beginner? Fish?
Oh, I didn't do it.
You didn't do it?
Yeah, because I have to review it first.
Okay, so you know what you have to do next, right? Cool. All right, so do you want guys to focus on intermediate? Yeah, let's do intermediate. Fantastic. All right, let's do that. So let me leave beginner and let's focus on intermediate. I would like to do something. I would like to solve maybe a couple of questions, classic ones about stateful, class, state, all these things. And then I would like to spend the remaining time doing one question about hooks, because one of the questions was simple if you knew hooks. So, say it again? The first one, yes. Yes, the first one probably talks about hooks. Yes, I will do that later on. Before talking about hooks, let me solve one question, because I mean that's fine. You never seen hooks. I get the point that you don't know how to do it. However, question number 2. that has nothing to do with hooks. So you can solve it without hooks. So the problem here is you receive a list of tennis players, female players. You got a list of players. But in reality, so in other words, you want to display a list of female players. However, your database contains names or male players, so we want to filter them out. So we want just to display the female players. We don't really need to create any state or anything like that, not at all. We just receive the list of players. So we have, first of all, to filter out, to only display the female ones. We know whether they are male or female because of the gender attribute, F or M. And finally, it looks like, and that's probably the trickiest part, please sort the results alphabetically. That will be the trickiest part, but let's leave that until the end. So, first of all, do I need to use constructor? Super. Do I need all of that, guys? Not at all. I don't want to update the user interface. I don't want to click on any button. I just want to display a table with female tennis players. And that table is available under props. As you may have noticed, how many arguments, how many props the female players component receives? 1. What type of data is that? It's an array, correct. It's an array of objects, An array, note the square bracket syntax, of 2 objects. One and the other one, 2 players. All right, so how do you display things in a stateful component? What's the method? That's render, that's correct, Anita. Render, and then what else? Return, correct, you see? So I want to iterate over the list of tennis player. So how can I do that? Which method in JavaScript iterates over an array to display something else? Filter. So with filter, I will decide what do I want to display. I agree with you, Fish, at some point we need filter. But imagine that we don't want to filter out anything. We just want to display them all.
For each or map?
For each or map. Can we use for each? Okay, right, let's do that. That's it, Camila. So we got this props.list. So that will never work because remember, as we covered a couple of weeks ago, for each doesn't return anything. Never use for each in a React component. Always use what instead? Map. That's correct. So with map, now I can say, hey, for each player, I can now display something. What information I want to display for each player? I don't know. Let's have a look. We just expect, let's have a look. Look, players wrapper.find p tag. So instead of a div, I should display for each player a paragraph. And what's the content associated to each paragraph? Let's have a look. That syntax is a bit weird. It may take you a while to understand what's going on here, but in reality, that's not that complicated. So here, what we are evaluating is that's the content associated to the first p tag, and that's the content associated to the second p tag. So based on that, can anybody tell me what should I display here? Player.name, like that? Inside the curly braces, you are right, because we want to interpolate player. Yeah? What if I want to destructure that? Can I destructure player? Can I do that? Gender? Okay, we'll look after the gender in a minute. For now, let's ignore the gender, just the name. So we can definitely do that. Yeah? So now I don't have to type player.allTime. As you may have noticed, this is throwing an error. Yeah? The syntax is not fully correct. And the reason is, when you destructure an argument, it should always be surrounded by parentheses. Yeah? That's the only thing. Once you add the parentheses, that's fine. You got the name. So do you remember, guys, when you create a loop in React, what else do I have to type here? Key, that's right. Key, and then what? What else?
Equal to the same thing. Name in.
Same thing?
No, name in curly brackets.
Name? Why name? So what's the criteria here to display the name? Has to be unique. Correct. Correct. Whatever you want, but unique. Is the tennis player name something we can consider unique? Yeah. I mean, regarding this exercise, there will be just one Federer player, one Osaka player, one Celes player, and one Hingis player. Yeah. Do you remember Monica Seles, by the way? She was stabbed in the middle of a game. Do you remember that in the 90s? Stabbed, yeah. See, by a crazy supporter. Don't you remember that, guys? I think it was Monica Seles. Monica Seles stabbed. Yeah. 1993. Yeah, you can watch that video. It's on YouTube. In the middle of a game. Yeah, that was pretty exceptional, thankfully. Anyway, so, yeah. So that will hopefully display a list of tennis players. However, that's not fully correct yet, because the exercise only cares about the female ones. So we have to filter out the male players. So, as Fish suggested before, here we can do filter and then something. Yeah? We'll see in a minute. Before going any further, because we need to perform two operations on the array of players, filter and map, please make sure you look after indentation. That will help on readability a bit. Yeah? Something like that. Sorry, not like that, something like that. Yeah? First of all, you filter, and then once you finish filtering, then you display them. So can anybody tell me how can I filter males, females? How can we look after that condition here? Let's ignore the structuring for now, like that. What else? How can I display only the female players? Let me show you the data model. Player dot what, Kaini? Gender, correct. What else? Yeah? Like that? Yeah, that's correct, Kaini. Yeah? For each player, please keep it if the gender is F. So if it's a female player. So that should be more or less okay. However, that won't work. You will see that should throw an error somewhere. Look, expected Celes to equal Hingis. In other words, the first result is expected to be Hingis. However, our first result is Celes. Why? Because we took the first player, we display it. We took the second player and we display it. On the original list, the first female player is Celes. That's why we displayed hers. However, according to the exercise, please sort the results alphabetically. Yeah? So we have to sort the results before we use map, before we display it. We filter and then we sort them. And that's a bit tricky. This week, as part of the board challenge, Esteban will talk about sorting. Sorting numbers is relatively easy. Yeah? If I got two numbers, like number A and number B, probably you remember. So will that, guys, sort the array ascendingly or descendingly? Ascendingly. Why? I told you the rule. A minus B ascendingly. B minus A the other way around. Yeah? If you want to be a bit more technical, a bit more precise, if that expression returns a negative number, it will keep the order. It will sort from the smallest to the largest. If that returns a positive number, yeah, so for instance like that, if it returns a positive number, it will put B in front of A. Yeah? To me, it's a bit hard to remember that sort of strategy. That's why I tend to say A minus B, it's ascendingly, B minus A is descendingly. Or as many developers do, try one, if it doesn't work, change it. Yeah? However, that's okay when talking about numbers, but can we add mathematical operations over strings? Can we do hello minus world, for instance? No, we can't. Fish is right. We can't do that easily. Yeah? So, I mean, even if we got player A and player B, we cannot do player A dot name minus. Sorry, let me add some break lines here for readability purposes. We cannot do that. That doesn't really make sense. That doesn't really make sense. However, there is a trick here, and that's, I mean, if you think about that, that may make sense, even though that's a bit controversial. So, let me show you DevTools. So, sources, and then let me zoom that bit. So, hopefully you can see my DevTools on the right-hand side. So, if I do one, let me change the order. So, I can do 1 is smaller than 2, and that returns true, as you can see at the bottom. Yeah, that's fine. I can also do, here you go. I can do 1 minus 2, or minus 2, like that, and that returns minus 1. So that's all good. However, I cannot do, so first of all, can I do that? Can I add 2 strings? Technically speaking, yes, but it's not going to perform any math operation. This is just a shorthand to concatenate 2 strings. However, can I do that? What will that return? Probably that will return NaN. Let's have a look. Here you go. Not a number like, hey, I don't know what you're trying to do here. So even though we cannot subtract strings, however, can we do that? What will that return? True. Why true? Is it based on the length? No, it's based on what? So will that return true or false?
False.
That's right. And what if I got that? True or false? True. Why true, Alex?
Because if I was the first one and the second one.
Correct. The first one is the same, but then the other say, all right, let's have a look to the second one. Is H smaller than W? Yes, it is. I mean, you may be thinking, what the hell? What the smaller means? This is just based on the alphabet, yeah? A, B, C, D, E, F, G, blah, 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 blah. Yeah? So on the alphabet, H goes before W. That's why it's considered smaller. Yeah? It's a bit tricky, but it makes sense, sort of. So we can definitely do the same thing when talking about sorting strings. So to keep the long story short, can I, first of all, so if player A.name is smaller than player B.name, then, to be honest, I may fail here. It may be on the other way around. As I told you many times, I'm not really good with 1 and minus 1. But the message is, if you return a positive number, it will return the array in one way. If it returns a negative number, it will switch the order. So let's see what happens. So it doesn't work. Oh, wait. That's a weird copy paste, right? It's not number B. It's player B. Maybe that helps. So let me try again. You see? It works. Why it works? Because if player A.name is smaller than player B.name, That means player A should be displayed first. Yeah? Remember, if it returns a negative number, it sorts the array ascendingly, from the smallest to the largest. If it returns a positive number, it will switch the order. Any questions?
I don't understand why it's returning a negative number.
Say again?
Why is it returning a negative number?
Why is return a negative number? Because you got the condition here, yeah? If you got hello and fish, so which one, can you sort that? So which goes first, H or F? A, B, C, D, E, F. That's right, yeah? So in other words, in that particular case, we would like to change the order, fish, hello, because fish is smaller than hello from the alphabetical perspective according to JavaScript weird criteria. Yeah? So, so if that's the case, if fish is smaller than hello, so if you do that, then you return -1. -1 means respect it as it was. Yeah? If it's negative, it doesn't matter if it's -1, -10, or -1 million. The rule is, if you return a negative number, it will keep the order. First on the one on the left, and then the one on the right. If it returns a positive number, however, it will switch the order. Yeah? Don't forget that sorting is sometimes complex. So this sorting algorithm will compare every pair. Yeah? Every pair of numbers, or in this case, every pair of strings will be compared. Yeah? So once again, if it returns a negative number, it will display this one and then that one. If it returns a positive number, it will flip the order. It will put B in front of A.
I have a question.
Yep.
If you go to the answers,
Yep.
I did not write, when sorting, I did not compare the player A dot name and player B dot name. I instead did just player A lesser than player B, but still it worked. I don't know why.
So you did something like that?
No.
B minus
I
A?
didn't access the name. I just player A less than player B. something.
Really?
Yeah.
You did that?
Yeah, something.
Oh, we'll see your code in a minute.
Okay.
We'll see the code in a minute. But on top of Anita's code, any question regarding this approach?
Just with sort in general, that when it does the iteration, how does it do it? What order does it do it?
Short, it will compare every pair. So
What order does it go in? So if you have like 3 things,
the order, I don't know the implementation details. I don't know, Alex. But to be honest, I don't know and I don't care. To me, that's a black box. So if I got an array of 2, 3, 1, and 2, and I want to order that, I don't care if it first compares 3 and 2, or 3 and 1, or 1. I don't care the order. Yeah, the important thing is, I know it will compare 3 and 1, it will compare 3 and 2, and it will compare 1 and 2. Yeah? That's what will happen. So for every pair, it will decide if 3 goes in front of 1 or 1 goes in front of 3, if 3 goes in front of 2 or 2 goes in front of 3, and the same thing with 1 and 2. Yeah? It has to compare every single pair. Anything else?
Sorry, but instead of this player A name less than player B name, is it possible to put player A name minus player B name?
No. As we explained before,
Yeah,
Camila, you cannot do that. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't make sense. Not enough. What is that expected to return?
Yeah.
24? It doesn't make sense. However, greater or smaller than, it makes sense at some extent, yeah, because we have a criteria. It's just a Boolean, true or false. Let me check what you've done. So this is question number 2, I think. Question number 2, yes. Yes, so, yeah, I mean, so I got few concerns about Anita's solution. First of all, it works, so that's great. Yeah, that's better than nothing. However, from a readability point of view, A and B. Yeah, you know I'm not a big fan of A and B. I would prefer to call it player A and player B, or player 1 and player 2, something like that. Yeah? Also, that feels very weird to me. Very, 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 very weird. Why? Because we are comparing objects. Yeah? Player A, or A, is an object with name and gender. B is another object with name and gender. So can we compare objects that easily? So that's what Anita is essentially doing. I mean, according to JavaScript, that's not even valid, yeah? So, yeah. To be honest, I mean, it works, that's great. Maybe under the hood, JavaScript has a mechanism to evaluate that, but that's risky, because as soon as your data model changes, that may easily break. Yeah? Also, please, let's look after spacing. You see, missing a spacing here, missing a spacing here, missing a spacing there. Yeah. Also, break lines. So you did really well here, adding sort and mapping a new line, but filter should be in a new line as well. I hope you agree with me. It helps readability. You see, bunch of steps. First of all, you filter, then you sort, and then you map. Would it make any difference, guys, if we sort before filtering?
I think because of what we're trying to achieve, we should filter first. I was going to ask that question, and then I was remembering that we have to first of all get a few more players,
Mm-hmm.
and use another function on each one,
Mm-hmm.
which is arranging by alphabetical order.
Yeah, but let's simplify the problem, Fish. So if you have to sort a list of, from a human point of view, if I have to sort the list of players, to me, it doesn't make any difference if I sort them, including the male players, and then I remove the males, or if I remove the males, and then I sort them.
It would be more performant to do it.
That's a different question. Performance is a different question.
Yeah.
But from a result point of view, I mean, let's try that, guys. Let's try that. Look, I'm sorting and then filtering. Shouldn't make any difference. Correct. You see, still works. But then, from a performance point of view, what is better, to first filter and then sort, or on the other way around, and why?
Because we're trying to get female players first from the array.
So you first filter and then you sort. Do you agree with Fish?
Yeah.
I agree with you, Fish. That's a good idea. Let me present you an example. Imagine that you got 1 million players, and out of that data set of 1 million players, you only got 10 females. So sorting is expensive, as we discussed last week, because sorting implies we have to sort every single pair. So we may need several million iterations to actually sort that huge list, which doesn't make any sense, because at the end of the day, you're going to discard 99.9% of that list. So based on that, it will be much better, first of all, remove the males, and then once you got your very small list of 10 female players, sort that. Yeah, so I agree with Fish. First, it's better to filter and then sort the resulting list. So let's have a look to what Giacomo did. Okay. So you see, he's sorting first. I will personally filter first, but that's fine. My main concern here is he's not moving sort to a new line. So even though that's relatively easy to follow, I personally prefer to have, before it's dot, add a new line. So then I got all my operations perfectly aligned. Yeah? Also, as I mentioned before, I'm not a big fan of the semantics, A, B, P. Yeah? I find that a bit hard to read. Writing is cheap, or almost cheap, or very cheap, almost for free. Yeah? So I think it doesn't hurt to write the entire thing, player A and player B. Can we actually destructure player B and player A? Can we? All right. So Fish, you tell me, what do I put here? We explained that on Friday, by the way. I know, that's why. So Fish has an excuse not to know that. Relatively excuse. But what about the rest? We told you on Friday what happened. I mean, let's do that. How do you?
If you do structure, you should end up comparing. You won't be able to tell what you
So
compare.
first of all, Alex, how do we do that? Then we'll see if that's okay or not. But how do we do that? Assuming that's possible.
Curves.
And then what?
The same thing.
So then what?
Then you remove player A and player B.
You see where the problem is? Does that make any sense? Name here equals name one. Name one. That's very weird syntax.
Yeah, at that point, you're doing more work. You might as well just play it up.
Sorry, say it again, Alex.
I said at that point, you're doing more work. You might as well.
But the thing is, yeah, even correct. So even if what Andrea suggested was okay, that syntax I find it particularly weird. But even if that was okay, at some point you are doing more work than just writing player, yeah. But ignoring that, I mean, I hope you agree with me that doesn't make any sense because you're creating two variables with the same name, with the same, yeah, the variable is called name, yeah. But even if you call it Brexit, same problem, yeah. You are overwriting the variable. That doesn't make sense. You cannot have two variables with the same name. Each variable must be unique. Yeah? So that doesn't make sense at all. That's why, as we explained on Friday, you cannot destructure the variables that easily when using sort is probably the only exception. Yeah? Because here, filter, can we destructure the filter thingy? So anybody apart from Kaini and Anita can tell me how to destructure that bit? Say it again, Alex.
Word players. Remove
Here?
the curves. Gender.
What?
Gender. But also you have to put the parentheses around.
That's correct. Remember, when you destructure, it always have to be surrounded by parentheses. In this particular case, we've got one parenthesis on the left, but we've got no parentheses on the right. So the solution, as always, is just to do that. Yep. And now that should still work. Does deconstructuring always helps on readability? I don't know, guys. I'm not very opinionated. I don't know if that code is more readable than just typing player and then player.gender. Which one do you prefer? I don't know. Yeah, but it's definitely doable. If you want, you can do that. Any questions? No? All right, so let's do question number one. Let's introduce hooks. So we'll do a workshop about hooks and we'll explain the background about hooks, why they are so convenient, all the controversial behind hooks, blah, 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 blah. The thing is, this is a typical example where, historically speaking, we had to create a stateful component. Whenever you got a button, generally speaking, and you want to display something, you need a stateful component because you want to update the user interface. Yeah? Whenever the user clicks on the button, you update the user interface. That's all good. That's fine. No problem at all. However, the problem here is this exercise is expecting you to create a stateless component. That's the controversial bit. Stateless component. Stateless component means please use hooks. Once again, I'm not asking you to fully understand that exercise because on Wednesday we'll dedicate 45 minutes just to solve this problem. But this is just, if you're curious about hooks, this is just an example. So with hooks, we can solve the same problem as working with stateful components, but in a much simpler way. So React has a method called useState. And useState essentially returns an array. Returns an array with two elements. First of all, the state, then a method to update the state. That's what useState does. So then we can do something like that. Let how we do that. We can destructure an array. Do you know how to destructure an array, guys? We've done that already. So to destructure an array, if I got let teams equals Man U and Liverpool, so I can do let Liverpool equals what? How do I access the team name? Teams of one, correct. But if I don't want, and then of course I can do the same thing with Man U, right? So let Man U equals teams of 0. Yeah, you can do that, no problem at all. However, how anyone apart from Kaini, Alex, and Anita, in other words, anybody that has slept less than 4 hours yesterday. So how can I destructure these two lines in a single line here? Let square brackets, what else?
Team names inside.
What?
Liverpool and United, or maybe the other way around.
Maybe, yeah.
Equals teams.
That's correct. That's correct, Sam, yeah? So this line, as we've already covered, is the same as these two lines. So it simplifies the process of accessing array elements. So that principle plays really well with React hooks, because in React hooks, we said that useState returns an array with two elements. First of all, the state, and then a method to update the state. So it will look something like that. So first of all, the variable holding your state. How you call it? Up to you. You can put whatever you want here. Yeah, I can put Man U or I can put Chelsea if I wanted. Yeah, it will be a bit weird because the Chelsea variable will hold the string Manchester United. But technically speaking, that's correct. I can name the variable however I want. So what are we talking about here? We're talking about whether a given feature is enabled or disabled. Yeah, you are creating an experimental component and you want to have a mechanism to enable it to your customers, or if you realize that your users are uninstalling your app, you want to disable it quickly, just pressing a button. So that's the same thing. I'm going to create a variable called isEnabled, and then my second element will be a method to update that variable. So I would like to call it setIsEnabled. Again, I can type whatever I want, yeah, but please look after semantics. One more thing. What is the default value of isEnabled? By default, feature disabled. So by default, the feature should be disabled. In other words, isEnabled should be set to what? True or false? False, that's correct. So how do we specify here? Here. You set the default value of your isEnabled function. And that's it. That's it. So now we can not render, return, because that's a stateless component. You see, I don't have any class, I don't have any constructor. This is a function, super simple function. So what do we type here? Well, whatever the component needs. So what is it about? We need a label to display whether the feature is enabled or disabled, and a button to switch the feature status. Label for now, and then a button. You see, once again, I'm preparing the structure of my component, label and button. So now here, I can type whatever I want, and here I can type whatever I want. I think the label on the button doesn't really matter, So the test is not checking how you call the button. So you can call it toggle feature or switch feature, doesn't really matter, hopefully. But now, this actually matters. So here we're going to display whether the feature is enabled or not. So, can we check that value? Yes. So can we say if it's enabled, then display feature enabled. If it's disabled, then display feature disabled. So we can do feature enabled, else feature disabled. Oops, disabled. Something like that. So that will hopefully work at the beginning, yeah? So until here, it will be okay. But now we will miss that scenario. Let's have a look. Because once the user clicks on the button, you see I'm right, once the user clicks on the button, are we updating the message? Are we switching that Boolean from false to true? Not at all, not at all. So let's do that. How do we capture the user click event on a button? On click like that, capital C. All right, guys, capital C. On click, look at how super simple this is. So now we can call a method called switch feature. Oh, feature. Well, you get that. Switch feature. Yeah. So now I can simply create a function here, switch feature, that will call that method and will update the value of is enabled. So can anybody figure out what should I pass here? What's the new value of is enabled? True. What do you think, guys? Okay, let's have a look. Let's have a look. Let's see what happened. So it worked originally. We've clicked on the button and we've changed the value. So now it's enabled. But can anybody tell me what the problem is now?
It always says true.
Correct. If we keep pressing the button like hell, yeah, the feature never gets disabled again because we are statically telling React, yes, the feature is enabled regardless of whether I click one time or 20 times. So what do we need to put here? Not is enabled, like that. Alex is right. Look at how simple it is. The new value will be whatever it was on the other way around. So if it was true and we negate it, the opposite to true is false. If it was false and we negate it, the opposite to false is true. So that's the way we can effectively switch on and off all the time. Okay? So that's the intro to hooks. On Wednesday, we'll run a workshop to focus on all the syntax and everything. But just to give you an idea, the main thing here is that line. That's the key for success in life.
Is that what a hook is?
That's what a hook is. Use state, that's the name of the hook.
Is it instead of state in classes? We use this dot state in class in the constructor class. Is it instead of that we use state?
That's correct. So this is the equivalent code, equivalent version of creating a stateful component. On Wednesday, what we will do is we will solve pretty much the same example using a React application, using a stateful component. And then we will refactor it, we will rebuild it using a hook. And you will see that even though from a user experience perspective, it will be the same behavior, on and off, from a technical point of view, hooks will simplify your life a lot. Because this code is much easier to read and especially to write than classes. The main thing here is, can you see any reference to this? This dot something? Not at all. Thanks to hooks, we reduce our dependency on oddities, and this lexical this is one of them. Yeah? Hooks.
Can I have an object also in the first, as the variable, for example?
So you want this to be an object?
Yeah, can you?
Yeah, if you want. So, okay, tell me, what's your object about?
I don't know.
Andrea false.
Yeah, can you
Yeah. And now, here, instead of isEnable, I need to type isEnable.Andrea. Yeah, why not? And here, what do I type here? Andrea. Can anybody complete this exercise?
No.
Negating what? Like that? Dot Andrea, that's correct. Boom. Okay. So of course, when you create a state, you can do whatever you want. To me, that feels very weird from many different angles, yeah? Readability and everything. But technically speaking, this is all right. You can create an object and then update one property of that object, yeah? However, one of the things about hooks is try to keep it the simpler, the better. So if you just want to switch something on and off, then do that. If you want to keep multiple properties dynamically changing, you can do something like that. Yeah, so you can definitely attach multiple hooks to a single component. But we'll talk about that on Wednesday. Anything else? No? All right, so guys, once again, we'll talk about it on Wednesday. Tomorrow we'll talk about working with Git as a team. And talking about teams, let me